Welcome back to Collision Course. In this video, we will be going over how to check for collisions and how they work, both between walls and players, as well as how all of the different board effects work and how to take damage. When moving, to check for collisions, you use the measurement stick of the appropriate length. The number of motion in your motion wheel will tell you which stick to use. So for example, if I was going like that, I would take the 2 measurement stick and I would put it where I am traveling. So in this situation, we can see there's no wall there, so I would be able to do the 2 spaces. But if this guy had motion diagonally like so, he would need to take the other motion stick, and putting it there, we see that it does in fact collide. The space that a collision occurs in is the space where it first collides. So because both of these sticks show green, the collision would happen in that space. For player collisions, sometimes they can be simple or complex. A simple collision would be when it goes in just one direction. So if it was head-on like so, that would be a simple collision, as it only goes in the east-west directions. But with the example that I'm going to run you through, we have a complex collision because it has a north-south component as well as an east-west component. So when you have a complex collision, you break it into 2 simple collisions. You can decide which one to do first. As long as both players agree, then it's fine. If both players don't agree, figure out a way to make them agree. So when you know that there is a collision between players, what you do is you determine their speed and their weight. So we're going to do the east-west component first. And so we will see that we are looking at the speed and weight of these 2 people. Blue has a speed east of 2. Green also has a speed east of 2. Blue I've set up to be just a basic machine, so it has 3 weight, whereas green will have a weight of 8. So once you've found those, you can look in the collision booklet for the correct page. Now, some of the pages in the collision booklet will be green, and later on in the book, they will have orange at the headers. You will use the green ones when both machines are going the same direction, whereas you will use the orange ones when they are going on different directions, such as a head-on collision. So because they're both going east, we are looking in green. So machine 1, we can see the M, or mass, which will be weight, for machine 1 is 8. So that is on this page. His speed is 2. And then we find the other machine, which is 3 and 2. So we look 3, 0, 1, 2. And so they get that many force. Having them both be at the same speed will mean that they get 0 force in that direction. Now, if one of them was going 3 speed, and the other one was only going 2. So if we look at the chart for 8, 3 and 3, 2, so that's 0, 1, 2, we now see that they will get 4 force. Force is given to both machines, but in opposite directions. So what that means is when this guy gets force, 1, 2, 3, 4 force, he's passed his motion once, meaning he's getting 1 motion. But unlike how with the program phase, you're moving motion in the direction that's forwards, it's not always the case with collisions. So to determine which direction you get force in, you see which direction and who's going faster. So because in the example that we had changed this to be a 3, green is going faster, which means he's giving motion to the blue player. So blue will be getting motion in that way, whereas green will be losing the motion or getting force in the other direction. So we can change this to a 3, and for green, he would also get the 4 force, 1, 2, 3, 4. That doesn't change his motion currently. Now he can do the other step of the collision. For this next part, because it is a north-south, and one of them has motion and the other one does not, because if we look here, we can see from 0 it is 1 up, so that we're looking at 1 speed on the chart. And for this one, it's not up or down any, so that would be 0 speed. When you have one person with 0 speed in that direction, you can choose to either use the green or use the orange. So let's look at the orange for this one. You can see at the top here we have 9 mass, so we need to flip back a couple pages. There we go. 8 mass, 0 speed, and 3 mass, 1 speed would be this second line. So again, this time they're both getting 4 force. Again, because this guy is running into the other guy, blue is getting force in the opposite direction and green is getting force in that direction. So 4 force would look 1, 2, 3, 4, getting 1 motion in that direction. So he's going to there. And green is getting 1, 2, 3, 4, getting 1 motion upwards. So now you have your final motions, and so now it goes on to the redirect portion of the collision. What that looks like is you determine how many spaces was moved before the collision, so that would have been 1. And you see how many spaces total need to be moved. So we have a 3 showing there and a 3 showing there. So 6 spaces need to be moved, and 1 has happened. Because blue has moved more spaces, he will be getting less spaces from the redirect, which means he will use 2 motion, and green will need to do another 3 motion. So what that looks like is you would set up the motion sticks to do the 3 motion for him, and of the 3 motion for the other player, he's only moving 2 of that. So you can place the original one, but only move the correct number of spaces. This redirect action can result in more collisions. So, for example, if there was another player there trying to go there, then red and blue would have another collision to deal with. One more thing with collisions is that when you get force that changes your motion, instead of taking that motion, you may choose to take damage. Now what that means is you will mark a part that you're going to get rid of at the damage step. So instead of this one, when it got to 8, going up there, it can stay there and take a damage. This means that during the damage step, it will be lost, but currently all parts of the part still work. So if there was text that said during a collision, that still applies to the collision, even if you're taking damage on it. For wall collisions, they are a little bit more straightforward. To start off, I will just go over a head-on wall collision, and then I'll go over some different angles. So if this guy was going 3 spaces, we can see that he will run into that wall without having to really put the measurement stick in that space. So you would move the spaces into the wall space, and that is where the collision happens. If he had started there, and you know what, let's do that. If he starts there, you would still only move him to the wall space. So then what you do is you count how many additional spaces he should have moved from before the wall. So it would be 1, 2 spaces that he should have kept going, because he won't be ending in the wall space. So for wall collisions, if you have that number of spaces, 2 spaces in this situation, you will lose that many motion as well as that many pieces. So what that means is motion, he's at 3, he's losing 2 of it. So 1, 2, because he ran into the wall in that direction. If he was facing this way, and he still ran into the wall in that direction, so he loses force in the direction that would cause him to stop because of the wall. So that would be still 1, 2. As well as losing motion, you also will take that many damage. So because he lost 2 motion, he takes 2 damage. That's pretty similar to taking damage in player collisions. You mark it, and it will be lost during the damage step. Once you have lost your motion and taken your damage, you then go on to the redirect portion of the wall collision. For wall collisions, that simply means moving back a space, and I'll get to this in a second, but then continuing any remaining motion. So what I mean by that is sometimes if you have diagonal wall collisions, so for example, if it was like this, let's just change the motion to be matching what I have on this stick here. He has a wall collision in that space. To determine which side of the wall collision happens in, for which direction to lose force in, there is a formula, but it's much easier to just look at the diagram in the rulebook. And so in this situation, because it's the last space, it is 1 motion, and it happens on this side as he is coming in this way, which means he will be redirected back to that spot. He loses 1 motion there and would get 1 damage. I'm just going to keep those on there from the last example to do in when I go over taking damage. Now, if there was still sideways motion to do, such as in this situation, when there is the collision here, it happens on this space, he gets redirected, and he still has 1 more motion because he's only moved 2 spaces out of the 3, so he will continue to that last space. Again, this redirection can have more collisions happen if other players were also trying to get to that last space. With a few wall collisions, you will take 2 effectively damage from 1 collision. So in this situation, 1, 2 spaces, it happens on both sides of the wall simultaneously. It'll get redirected back there, and because it happened on both sides of the wall, 1 space, it would do 1 in that direction, 1 in that direction, as well as 2 damage. That pretty much wraps up collisions, and so now let's get into what some of the different board mechanics do. Once you have finished colliding and done friction, which I covered in the last video, you go on to the board step. During the board phase, if you are on a special terrain space, stuff will happen. So, on ice spaces, this is technically done during the friction step. Ice is slippery. You will be getting less friction from ice spaces. Depending on difficulty, it'll work slightly different, but usually it will make you take one less friction. On the other side of these single tiles is kind of the opposite counterpart. So we have rubber spaces. Again, during friction, if you're on one of these, then you will take one more friction, or it might be dependent on weight if you are playing at a different difficulty. If you are on a vent space, which has a little fire icon, it means that you will be taking one yellow gained heat during the board phase. On the other side of these, we have pits. If you are in a pit space during the board phase, then you will be eliminated. If you want to play with special rules, you can decide that you can eject pieces so that you do not die from a pit, in which you would have to take damage equal to half of your current weight. So in this situation, I would have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weight. In order to balance that out, to effectively overcome the pit, I would need to drop 4 pieces. Because I've already designated these ones to be damaged, they cannot be discarded to escape from a pit. So this machine would die. If these ones were not designated to be damaged, I could discard a piece, a few pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4 weight to overcome my 8 weight, because that would bring me down to 4 weight, as well as I discarded 4 weight, and I would be safe from the pit. Note that pits are not walls. You do not fall into them directly. You can, if you are going fast enough, jump over pits, because their effects only apply during the board phase. The same goes for all other terrain except for walls. Checkpoints. Some of them are necessary to complete the game, but sometimes they are just optional. Whether they are necessary or optional, if you are on a checkpoint, during the board phase, you will get 1 free scrap to spend on parts in the next build phase. If you have gotten touched all of the required checkpoints and made it all the way to an end checkpoint, as long as you cross an end checkpoint, then you will win the game. If multiple people touch the end checkpoints at the same time, then there is a tie, which is broken by whoever had the coolest machine during the game at any point. Gear spaces. When you're on a gear space, it's pretty simple. It rotates you in the direction of the arrow, so this one would rotate me that direction. Don't forget that this would also rotate your motion meeple. Gears come in red, rotating one way, and green, rotating the other direction. Then we also have conveyor belts. There are slow and fast conveyor belts. You can remember this because slow only has 1 common color, whereas fast has 2 different colors before the gray. So what that means is if you are on a slow one, you would be getting one motion in the direction of the arrows, because they can be rotated differently. Whereas a fast one, you would, instead of getting one motion, you would get 1, 2 motion. So this would be motion for the next round. If you are going off the board, these spaces off of the edge of the map are considered wall spaces, as if they had that yellow border there. So that's what all the different terrain does. So now let's talk about lasers. Depending on the difficulty of the game, you will have a different way of shooting your laser, but the laser will always do the same thing. If you are shot by a laser, you get heat equal to the laser intensity. So the blue character has 1 laser intensity, so I would get 1 heat. To determine if a machine gets shot, in an easy game, it is simply they fire straight forward. In a medium game, they can fire in any straight direction. So in this situation, green would shoot blue and blue would shoot green. And in a hard game, you can shoot any diagonal direction included, except when line of sight is blocked through a wall. Lasers can go any distance, but stop when they hit any wall or other machine. So in this situation, blue would still be able to shoot green. And if it was a medium game or hard game, green would also be able to shoot blue. If there are multiple players, you only get 1 laser shot, so blue has to choose between shooting red or shooting green. Once all of the lasers have been fired and you've done all of the board effects, you can then move on to taking damage. What that means is if your yellow is above your weight, then you will be taking additional damage. So in this situation, if it's on 13 yellow, whereas I only have 8 weight, I would be taking another damage. So I'm going to mark a piece to be lost to damage here, and I would go down by the number equal to my mass. So I would go down by 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now I am under my mass, so I can stop taking damage from heat. If I was only at 5 weight when I had 13 yellow, well then I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's the first damage, and I'm still above, so I would have to go down another 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, taking a second damage. But notice that I stopped because the orange resting heat prevented it from going down any further. In a hard mode, instead of taking off your total weight, it would only be the difference. So in this situation, 1, 2, 3, 4 would be reduced. So it would go 1, 2, 3, 4, meaning that he would have to take another 1, 2, 3, 4, totaling 2 damage from heat. Once you have determined how much damage you are taking, then you actually lose those parts. So what that means is all of these scrap tokens that you've placed as placeholders get placed on your space of the board, and all of the parts go into their respective discards. The standard parts will just go back to the top of the piles, but the random and premium parts will go into their own discard piles. When you take damage, this is the point in which those parts stop working, so you do need to change your machine so that it reflects what you now have. So this would go back down all the way. Note that when I change this, I've already taken the damage, so I'm not taking another one immediately from heat. Although, if the yellow stays there, then I will be taking another damage in another round. And so what does damage look like when you don't have any parts except for your core part? Because I know that I'll be taking damage, I can walk you through that again. So again, -3, so we would go 1, 2, 3, and I would take a damage. Because it's my core part, if you are playing on a easy game, you can simply cover one of the mass stat icons on the core part. If you are forced to cover all 3, that is when your machine will blow up, in which case you would remove your map token from the board, and at the next build phase, you would place it back on a previous checkpoint that you had touched. If you had fallen into a pit, you would also place it back at a checkpoint at that same time. Note that the ones from your core part, the scrap tokens, do not get placed on the board. The purpose of the scrap tokens on the board is so that people can pick up the scrap and build new parts with it during the next build phase. You pick up scrap when you are going through all of the rest of the board phase activities. So because damage happens last, you don't pick up the ones that you just lost, but if you stay there for another round, then you will pick them up. Most of the time, though, you will still have motion remaining, and you will not be able to pick them up because you're not on that same space, leaving it for other players to pick up when they land on it. And that concludes the damage phase.